Good morning, everyone. How is everyone? Did everyone have a good evening? I sure did. Last night's interview with Matt Baier was really eye opening and I thought went really well. Before I get into, I guess, what happened in the interview, I want to just address some things that are going on in my chat and some feedback that I've been given. I actually made a comment in my community tab with some more information, but I hear you loud and clear about the chat and comments being deleted. That was never my intention with having this channel, was to have moderators constantly deleting comments or making it feel like you guys can't share your points of view or talk about what you feel, nor do I want them automatically deleting comments about me that maybe aren't flattering. Like, I realize that plenty of you are watching me that don't like me and maybe don't agree with me or have assumptions about me, and that's totally fine. I'm not going to please everyone. I think maybe sometimes they get protective of me, which I can't, I guess, fault them because many of them have become friends with me. However, at the same time, I do expect them to be professional when they're in the chat and not to abuse the power. And so we did, after last night's stream, I went through and watched everything. And unfortunately, once the comments are deleted, I can't see what's been removed in a replay. So I wasn't able to see how many comments were deleted, but I did see a couple moderators that were consistently being talked to about deleting, and so I noted that, and I highlighted some comments that I felt like didn't have to be deleted, which just seemed silly to me. The biggest thing with our moderation is that YouTube expects us to adhere to the community guidelines, and part of that means that we have to abide by that. Live chat can actually get shut down if you if your channel is found in violation and people report your live chats. And so we want to be really mindful of that. And so some of the things that are really important that we're not endorsing on this channel are like hate speech, abuse, threats, violence, discussion of like illegal drugs, promotion of crime, discussion or threats, doxing, acts of violence, discussing violence in the sense of like threats, child abuse. There's a lot of different aspects, miracle cures, hacking, spam, that kind of stuff. And so we are going to be a lot more mindful of that. I've posted a link in the community tab, or in my community tab, with a link to the community guidelines so that you can acquaint yourself with them. But as a content creator, I'm expected by YouTube to adhere to theirs and in what, not only what I upload, but what people are allowed to comment on my page. I've made a list now in my actual moderating tab of blocked words, which will not be permitted for use. And so if you use one of those blocked words and it doesn't go through, that's why. And if it just, also I'm blocking links from now on. So if you post a link, those will be blocked. And then the biggest thing is that we just don't want people to be targets for harassment. So if you're here to be nasty to me and to harass me, that's different than being like, Katie, I don't agree with you. I don't expect you to agree with me. What I don't want to see is comments that are violent or threatening towards me, or to any of my moderators, or to any of you. So I really need to hear this kind of feedback, and I appreciate all of you guys for sharing that with me and letting me know all of this information. So I can only do what I do because of you, and I appreciate you guys so much, and I value that. And so we're gonna work through it. I've now instructed my moderators to not delete comments or to time anyone out or to ban anyone. The only moderators that are allowed to ban anyone are Jesse Bear, Dreadlocks, and Scott. If you see anyone else banning people, please let me know. but I don't want people hidden from my channel just for a bad comment. And in terms of like people that troll, as long as you guys ignore the trolls in the comments, they go away. So just don't engage with them. There's really no need to ban them. I don't want people to think that coming here they can't speak their mind. I don't want people to think that they can't say, "Oh, I don't believe Matt." I don't, you know what I mean? Like, or I don't like Shane Dawson. Like in one of the videos I was watching, literally moderators were deleting comments that said, "I don't like Shane," or "I really like Shane. I can't believe Katie doesn't like him." You know, and that's not an appropriate thing to delete. So we'll work on it. This channel has grown really fast. Last month when I started in September, I had under 15,000 subscribers, and now I have almost 31,000 subscribers. So in the past month, we've doubled, which has been a learning curve, and we've added some new moderators. And trust me, if moderators abuse their privileges, I will absolutely remove them as a moderator. And so if there's feedback that you have, always reach out to me on Without a Crystal Ball on Facebook, Instagram, or on Twitter, which is all going to be in the description below. All right. So this is where we're going to get started. Last night's interview. Okay. So some of the feedback from the interview I thought was interesting. Like, people seem to be extremely mixed. Like, they either really believe him or they just really don't believe him, and they think he's thirsty, or he wants to have his 15 minutes of fame, or that Amber pays him. One of the funniest comments I got in my comments from last night's video was that, like, this person could not, and there's literally a subreddit right now of conspiracies related to me. I haven't gone into it, but one of the conspiracies right now is that I'm a part of the Illuminati. Or I'm into voodoo or something, because that would be the only reason that people would want to come onto my channel and actually talk. And that and other people are saying that I am like squashing other channels from getting interviews, which is just really not how I roll at all. Like, I am not that kind of person. Like, I don't say to Matt, like, you can't talk to another channel. That's so ridiculous. That would be like me being like, when I was writing, for instance, for Pathios, being like, you can't talk to NBC, or you can't talk to Starcasm, or you can't talk to the Ashley. Like, public stories are public stories, and if someone wants to talk to you, they'll talk to you. I asked Matt why he was comfortable coming onto my channel, and he said that it took a lot of bravery for me to release that audio, given the fact of the amount of exposure it would put on me. It also, in terms of the negativity that would get directed towards me, which, holy crap, there's been a lot of. But he also said that I treat people really fairly, and I'm kind, and he likes me. So I guess that's just how it goes. And I do try to treat people fairly behind the scenes. And I will say that I've talked to Matt now twice, like on the phone, per se. And I'll text with him here and there. But I've never seen Matt lie. When I have like asked him pointed questions, he will answer them. Even if they don't put him in a flattering light. He will respond to things that are hard, even if it's not like the best aspects of it, that will be like show the best aspects of him. And then I think the other thing that I've learned about him just in the short time that I've gotten to know him is that he's extremely loyal. And he seems to have a sense of loyalty to the people in his life, where that even if someone did him really poorly, or if he was treated badly, he will own up to his own mistakes and sort of share like where his like what his behavior might have been as a part of that breakdown. And then also, because of his history with people, he doesn't necessarily want to just drag them through the media because he's angry, or because he's mad, or he wants to be on someone's team. He wants to be truthful without being mean. And I think that's something it's a delicate balance, and especially with Matt and other people from the show, everything that they say is twisted or turned around in the media, and that happens. I mean, we do some snark on here, and I'm sure sometimes I get it wrong when I'm snarking on them, and I'm sure sometimes my comments are not accurate, and that happens with any medium you're in, whether it's YouTube or written or anything, any kind of reporting or commentary that will happen. And so I think he's just very mindful of that. And I think people were like, oh, he's just so different between the first time that you talked to him and the second time. And I would say, actually, no, his story didn't change. It's just that you heard him speaking first. And so he didn't change literally anything that he said to me. I think this time, though, he was on air, and so he had to be mindful of what he was saying and how that would come back to him, along with how it would impact the people that he was talking about. And I get the sense that even if things didn't end well with him and Amber, he doesn't want to harm her further. He doesn't agree with what she's done, but I also think he's cognizant of the fact that a lot in her life has changed and is quite different than what it was when he was with her, if that makes sense. He is definitely difficult for anyone. Yeah, he's acting like an adult. Correct, B. It's difficult because when his relationship with Amber ended, at least from what I can tell, she was probably starting into her relapse, right? So she was smoking pot and doing some more drinking. And I don't know about whether or not there was some sobriety issues with her during that time. And if he didn't disclose that, it might just be that he's protecting her, or maybe he just doesn't remember. You know what I mean? Like, some of the stuff goes back to 2014, and so he might not recall, especially if he's in his own relapse, what was going on. But he did admit that those scratches on his face and those photos that he posted of the black eye, that those came from Amber. And so I think that's a really big step, because up until this point, he has been very reluctant to share that or to say that, because I think he didn't want to paint her in a bad light. And I still think that part of that comes from having a love for someone. In all of the conversations that I've had with him, you guys, I have never once gotten the sense that he wants to get back together with her. Quite the contrary. I think he's a lot happier being away from the chaos, and I think he's a lot happier in the life that he has now versus where he was when he was with her. I don't see it like he wants to get back with her. I think it's more just like he sees stuff that's being said, and knowing her, even if he didn't end things on the best level, he doesn't want people to drag her, I guess. And he was very kind about, Tanya and Sean in the same breath, probably just because he doesn't want those relationships to erode in the fact that maybe if they needed something, he might be there for them. And that's just my speculation, not what he's told me, okay? So he did not say that to me. So other than that, with I'm trying to think of some of the things that he talks about with me. When we were talking about the filming, well, actually, no. What I think I found most interesting was the pattern of escalation that's happening here, as well as some of the insight that he talked about with Amber and the perceived threat that she has of whether or not she feels like she's being attacked, like her inner child is being attacked, like someone's telling her she's stupid, like there's some sort of trauma from her life where she feels like someone's coming at her and it's a personal attack always, versus like someone saying something to her, which I know can be a part of some of these personality disorders. Again, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know. But the one thing that I found the most interesting, I think, out of all of this is that she can't say she's sorry, at least according to Matt. I don't know if she does, you know what I mean? Like, he says he thinks she feels bad, but he said that she doesn't necessarily say she's sorry. And this was the part for me that kind of stuck in my heart, because I was like, well, if somebody is borderline personality, typically they have empathy and they will apologize and feel badly after the fact. and will recognize when they've done something wrong. And I think when someone can't do that, then I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like the borderline to me. Again, I'm not a psychologist. I just have so many of you that have reached out to me that have said, like, I feel terrible when these things happen. I apologize. And I did talk to a psychologist that runs a YouTube channel, and I'm going to have her see if I can coordinate a time for her to come on to sort of talk through some of this kind of stuff. She's a clinical psychologist that specializes in this kind of stuff. And just have her sort of walk us through like what the characteristics are of these different disorders. And she would not diagnose, obviously, but she could maybe help us explain some of this. I think there's also a problem here that Matt was saying that she was sober for the most part when they were together, and she's clearly, according to what Andrew has disclosed, as well as like what the police report says, was not sober. And I think we saw sort of indications of that in this last season with her, drinking and that kind of stuff. So I think addiction could certainly change the personality of someone and cause a lot more explosive behaviors. But to me, it didn't even sound like the arguments were really all that different. And you guys had said to me, like, you wanted to talk about the Angelina Jolie story. So I'll share it with you. I saw you guys going, like, talk about the Angelina Jolie story. So here's what he told me. He said that he was, like, watching a movie with her. And while they were watching a movie, like, she made a comment to Matt that said, I think that Angelina Jolie will go down in history as being the most amazing, a more like well-acclaimed actress than Meryl Streep. Something like that. And Meryl Streep, if you're familiar with her, she's like now in her 60s, but she has several Academy Awards, and she is very, very, very talented. She has done so much amazing work. Angelina, for her part, I think has either 1 or 2 Academy Awards. She hasn't done a lot of work recently on the screen, but Matt, being a Meryl Streep fan and like looking at like her whole thing, was like, no one will beat Meryl Streep. And Matt says, call me and I'll tell the Angelina Jolie story. Do you want me to call Matt? I can call him. That's so funny. I can call him if you want me to call him. Okay, I will call Matt. Okay, 1 second. Somehow we got disconnected.
Yo, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Alright.
Alright, so tell everyone, Matt, tell everyone the Angelina Jolie story.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Can you hear me now? Uh-oh. He must...
Yes, I can.
You can hear me? Maybe...
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, so tell them the Angelina Jolie story.
Alright. So, little background. My favorite movie is the movie Girl Interrupted, about with Angelina Jolie, and went over about in the mental institution.
The girl that, yeah, and they have borderline personality disorder.
So, we were watching the movie.
Oh, you are just not in a good...
Favorite movie. So we were watching the movie for the 100th time one night. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Alright, so we were watching the movie, and Amber made the comment just randomly that said, by the time her career is over, Angelina Jolie is going to be the most decorated actress in history. I made the fatal mistake of replying, what about Meryl Streep? You would have faked that I said the most horrible thing in the world, because she did that slow turn with the one eyebrow raised and her eyes squinted, and
Yeah. Oh, man. Your signal's in and out.
I can't even tell you, it turned into the biggest, dumbest argument that I've ever had in my life. It was, and I still to this day go back to that one because A, Amber doesn't know Angelina Jolie.
Yeah.
B, Angelina Jolie doesn't need Amber defending her. And C, I didn't say anything negative about Angelina Jolie. All I said was two words, Meryl Streep. And boy, oh boy, this was one of the longest arguments we had ever had because listen, I kept coming back with, you're wrong. You're absolutely, I've given up a lot of these arguments and I'm going to defend Meryl Streep. But here I think it's a fun kind of thing to argue about and play around about.
Yeah.
She was so angry with me, and I wish I had a picture. Our bedroom door had a hole in it the size of the Holland Tunnel.
So she punched a hole in your door?
Did I what?
She punched a hole in the door?
No, I think, if I recall, she threw something across the room in anger, and it went through the door.
Oh, my God.
She wasn't throwing it at me, but she was so mad over this conversation, and it was one of those things where you would have thought that later on it would have been something to kind of look back on and laugh.
Yeah.
That was the sorest subject. And me, listen, I'll be straight up with you. There were times we'd be watching a movie later on, and like a Meryl Streep movie, and I would throw a little dig in here and there.
Oh my goodness. Uh-oh, the call failed. He's in a tough spot. Okay, so that was Matt telling us about the Angelina Jolie story. Yay! Okay, so this is an example of, I think, what we've been talking about was that just little things will set her off, right? And so I think in general, he's in the desert, you guys. That's why he's not getting the best signals here. So we're just going to call it a day on that. But I do appreciate for him joining me on there. So that's your Angelina Jolie story. So I think the other thing that I got out of this interview, more than anything, is that, addiction is a disease. And I think based on just what we've heard from Andrew, what's in the police report, she's denied it, obviously, but what Andrew has said and what Rhonda alleges smelling, in terms of pot, and then like Andrew said on Instagram that she was using opiates again, and she had been on Klonopin again, which if you remember when she was having a lot of her issues back when she was with Gary, a couple factors were the biggest thing was opiates and Klonopin. And I think marijuana for an addict is dangerous because it's kind of like a gateway, and it elicits that the dopamine in your brain the same way other drugs do. So probably might have been a slippery slope again. I don't know. Without her coming out and saying anything and admitting, it's hard to know. She did admit in 2017, after people called her out for her bizarre behavior on Marriage Boot Camp, that she was acting weird. She admitted that she had relapsed. So I think maybe some part of it is addiction as well as just not taking care of her mental health, which results in a perfect storm. And, there's also her personality disorder. There's so many different layers, but I think more than anything is that, the biggest sense out of all of this is that everyone I talk to, no matter like whether you love her or you hate her, people that know her, that know the good side of her, say she's a really good person, and then she picks on the people that are the closest to her, which are her partners, and that she's generally not that lashing out at kids. Although Andrew has alleged on Instagram that, there's been altercations with James. And obviously the police report includes him holding James when all this happened. And we heard the audio of her attacking Andrew when he was holding James. And the complete disregard for the child, I think, is the part as a mother that has got stuck in my craw, or in my heart. Like, how can you be so callous? And so I think it's hard to tease through what's actually going on here, because if she is using drugs, that's going to cloud anything. It's going to also make anything that's underlying with her mental health appear 100 times worse. But Matt alleged on his own that without drugs, she was violent. So I don't think the violence necessarily is a product of the drugs. I just think maybe it got worse with the drugs. I don't know. I think one part of it too that I maybe have forgotten in all of this is that, and I guess I didn't realize how close the taping of Marriage Boot Camp was to when it actually, when she actually hooked up with Andrew. Now, Andrew and Amber publicly, Amber has said publicly, like, nothing happened during the house. And conversations I had weeks ago with Andrew, he told me nothing happened in the house. And that anything that happened was after the fact, when filming was over. And so I think part of what I didn't even really consider was that, and I think I forgot about, was like, they were living together. They broke up. Matt had to go home to Indiana. He had to pack up all of his stuff. Theoretically, probably had no place to go. And then she's calling him and telling him, I don't want you to be there in California, with the implication that she's already moved on. And mind you, when they were on Marriage Boot Camp, their relationship was on life support. When they walked into the house, one of the first things she said was that they barely connect anymore, And he said they didn't even spend the same night in the hotel room the night before. They slept in separate beds when they were on Marriage Boot Camp. It wasn't like an intimate relationship by any means. So I think what struck me the most was that she ended up getting into a relationship really, 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 really fast with Andrew, and then got pregnant equally as fast. And that warped speed of a relationship almost always ends poorly, because you're getting involved with someone that you barely know, and then you're going to bring a child into this situation that with a person that you barely know, and then you're going to try to navigate all of these things, and then during the pregnancy, leading up to her pregnancy, she's in a relapse. And then during her pregnancy, she's theoretically clean. And then after her pregnancy, having James, it sounds like she relapses again. And being in a relationship with an addict or an active addict is challenging for anyone. But then they also barely knew each other. And I think once you throw a kid into the situation, it even takes away that much more between you being able to get to know each other. So I think there was just so many different aspects here that really played a role in why these relationships were so different. She and Matt started out as friends. They talked online for months before they met. They never had a child together. They had an opportunity to court, to get to know each other, to really develop a relationship and a commonality, whereas Andrew and Amber never had that. And I think that can also make a situation a lot more volatile. I will only say this from my own experience, and I know you guys get mad at me for bringing like my own experiences in, but I feel like it helps me like provide you a backdrop. But like, I think of it like this, like Matt and her had a really toxic relationship, and I think it's not really uncommon when you come out of a toxic relationship to rebound. And in 2005, I split up with my boyfriend that was abusive with me. And I ended up going for and being attracted to someone completely opposite of him, which if you look at Andrew and Matt, they're like polar opposites. And so I remember walking into that relationship because I was so battered and bruised in my previous relationship. Finding someone that was so different than my ex, it was like a breath of fresh air. And then to have him, like, come with so many, like, spoiling me with presents and gifts and, you know, telling me how beautiful I was, which was so different than what I experienced with my ex. I ended up, you know, falling for this guy and moving in with him within 10 days, not thinking rationally, thinking with a rebound, thinking like, oh my God, it feels so good to feel good again. And then within 9 months of everything starting, it was over, and then it blew up into a massive fight at the end where he pushed me off a bed and I got a black eye. And it's, you know, it's easy to rebound when you're feeling very vulnerable, and I think that might have been what happened with Amber. She rebounded and then got in over her head. They both probably were in over their head, clearly. So that's kind of what I think. That this was a very unstable place for them to start, and I think that instability and the fact that they were mere strangers, and then they had to plan a life together, just made everything 100 times worse, and probably escalated this behavior and relationship even worse. And then you add in the fact that she's using or abusing drugs, not taking her mental health medications, not taking her Depakote, according to Andrew on Instagram, that it was just a recipe for disaster. And as much as I don't like what she did and how she treated him, I think it's important that we always remember that while we shouldn't be blaming our mental illness, and abuse is a choice, addiction is not a choice, and relapsing can make violence worse. And, you know, no matter what happens here, whether it's Amber stays on MTV or doesn't stay on MTV, the best thing I think for her at this point is to get out of the limelight. I think there has been a toxic component in this, and I've talked about this a lot with a lot of these teen moms, that I think they got into fame at a very young age. They were given a lot of money at a time when they were very young. It didn't make them have to find or go to school or find real jobs. They didn't have to learn skill sets to be in a stable environment. They were awarded for their bad behavior. They were provoked or initiated by, you know, producers wanting them to talk about certain things over and over and over again in an effort to make good TV. And I think there's an aspect of that. It takes over the psyche, and I think for some of people, it'll make them withdraw and become more socially scared. And clearly, according to Amber, and by recognizing by what's going on with everyone saying all that she does is spends time in her room, is that there's clearly some sort of like social anxiety going on there. But then there's also this aspect of grave overinflation of ego and believing that this show isn't going to end. And that was something that, you know, Matt and I had talked about, was that he and I were talking about it. I don't even know if he talked about it. We touched on it a little bit, but he and I talked about it offline yesterday. I don't remember. But that some of these people just haven't thought forward and haven't considered what's next and haven't planned for what's next. And they're on the top of the world with this indication that MTV is never going to cancel us. The money's always going to come in. I have no incentive to do anything different. This is why I'm being rewarded for bad behavior. And producers have rewarded Amber over and over and over and over and over again for having bad behavior. And there's no incentive for her to really get better because they use her mental health, her explosive behavior as a storyline. And without that storyline, what is Amber's storyline? It's kind of like Janelle's storyline was fighting with Barbara, or Farrah's storyline was fighting with Deborah, or Tyler and Kate's storyline is this adoption. And I've always gotten the sense that that dictation of what the producers want your storyline to be versus what your reality is might cloud their own lives and make it hard for them to really process traumatic events and move on. And it can't be good for anyone that already has an underlying mental illness to have that kind of manipulation in their lives. Whether or not the producers are nice and care about these people is irrelevant to me, but the fact that if they're really going through traumatic events, like say giving a child up and then being forced to talk about it over and over and over and over again, it doesn't help. Like Kate and Tyler really need to be able to process it and just move forward, not stay stuck in that trauma. And it feels like the producers have kept them stuck in that trauma. Same thing with, talking about the issues with Ryan over and over and over and over and over again for Macy. Like, leading up to this last season, Macy was very agitated that the producers wanted the focus to be on the relationship with Ryan when she had other things going on in her life that she really wanted to focus on. Bristol Palin was really unhappy and only stayed on a season because they didn't focus on any aspects of empowerment around parenting. They only focused on the drama of relating to her divorce, which obviously brings out the worst in you, and also provides great TV. And so I think the fact that there's not a lot of balance in what's shown, they don't show the good stuff, they don't show the good positive interactions, they don't show the fun they're having. All they do is talk about drama or are immersed in drama, and I think that can cloud their lives. And then after the show airs, they have to hear about it from every media outlet, and they're getting bombarded on Twitter and on Instagram with all of these people making assumptions. And I can't imagine after 10 years what that does to a psyche. And it's just sad that for a lot of these kids, the mighty dollar has won out to the mental health of them, and that now they're almost stunted. And I think one of the things that Matt and I talked about was that, once you're done with this, it's kind of hard to get a job because your entire life has played out for every single person, and everyone has an opinion about you. And no matter what you try to do, employers can Google you and see who you are. And that's another thing that you really have to think about. And I'm just starting to, the more I get engrossed in this and learn about this, it's really mind-boggling how complex this situation is, and then have to have everything so publicly happening. It really makes me realize, not only is what Amber doing was terrible and what happened between her was terrible, but it's also sort of terrible the way that the show has manipulated these people, the way that they have, so many of them have sold their souls for money and for that sort of fame. And these are some of the very negative aspects of fame that can happen. And when things start to break down and the shows are declining, the ratings are down for Teen Mom 2 right now, for Teen Mom. And I think that's going to stay true because, you guys, the show is so far removed. It's at a point where it really should be ending soon. And if you want to watch what it's like to go through teen pregnancy, you just have to go on to TLC and watch Unexpected. There's competition now for these types of shows, which there wasn't 10 years ago. So I think for everyone involved, as hard as it would be, I think the show really does need to start considering wrapping up. 30-year-old teen moms is not what I signed up for when I started watching the show. And to be honest, I haven't watched a single episode of Teen Mom 2, and I promised you that I wouldn't, given what happened and how MTV has not responded to this with Amber. And I think they're feeling that because their ratings are down a lot. Janelle might not be there, but I think equally as mad as people are about Janelle, they're equally as mad about Amber. And I don't know that Amber's going to be able to come back from this and have people forgive her this time. I am very grateful that Matt opened up to me and shared with me and came on to me. And you guys, I promise I'm not in the Illuminati. What was the other thing I saw? People said I'm a liar and a narcissist. In order to be a narcissist, I have to not have empathy, and I definitely have empathy. And I can assure you that despite what other people are saying online, I have never been diagnosed with any sort of personality disorder. I have ADHD and anxiety, and I've been very open with that. But I also don't have any skeletons in my closet, and I'm definitely not a narcissist. So just remember that everyone that's on TV, whether it's YouTube or on reality TV, behind that, there are people, and our words do matter. And I think Matt's parting words last night are really something that I need to stick to and be more true to myself and more cognizant of, and that is remembering that the people that you're talking about are humans and that we can be critical of their choices and what happens, but not necessarily going after everything that they do or who they are. We cannot like their actions, but maybe not going after the person. So that's what I've got for now. I was told that Todd Chrisley might want to sue me, so I have to go listen to the new Chrisley Knows Best podcast, and I'll be back with more about his plans on bringing litigation against me. All right, you guys, I'll be back later. And again, thank you so much for your continued support of this channel and for being here with me every single day. I could not do this without you, and we will do better every day in our chat so that you feel like you have a voice and that your voice matters, and you do not have to agree with me. Bye, guys.